welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I'm Luke.
I'm Melissa.
And we are doing our end of the book special. The crowd goes wild.
And then they start coughing.
We are going to recap the final two chapters of the book, chapter 16, Through the Trapdoor, chapter 17, The Man with Two Faces. Melissa, what just happened?
Harry, Ron, and Hermione finish out the year by going through the fluffy, protected trapdoor and chasing our bad guy. After many trials meant to stop unwanted stone seekers, Harry finally confronts our big baddie. That turns out to be Quirrell, with a Voldemort attached to the back of his head, giving a purpose to the turban. After rescuing the stone, Harry defeats Quirrell with his mother's dying love protection spell thingy, helping him out to blister Quirrell to death. Since Voldemort can't touch Harry, and Voldemort is attached to Quirrell, so Quirrell cannot also touch Harry. Geometric proof right there. Dumbledore retrieves a passed-out Harry, who wakes up 3 days later and gets the rundown from Dumbledore. After attending the year-end feast, where he and his buddies earn enough points for their daring activities to win the house cup for Gryffindor, Harry goes back home to Privet Drive.
All right. After that summary, let's welcome back our younger brother and first-time reader, Riley.
Hey guys, thanks for having me again.
Glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
All right, Riley, so we finished the book.
Yeah, wow.
You finished the book. We're really proud of you.
Thank you. I mean, I know how to read now, right? I mean, like, you read one Harry Potter book, you get that medal, that little accolade you can read now.
They don't give those medals out anymore.
No, oh, man.
Yeah, you didn't read it fast enough.
You know what? It's a personal win in my book.
I think I can dig up a crusty gold star.
All-star reader medal.
There you go. We'll try to find one for you.
So we just got through all of these obstacles, and we find out that it's Quirrell, and then Harry gets out, and he survives. What are your thoughts and feelings about what we just went through? It was a whirlwind of events, it seemed like.
You know what? It's interesting because Harry does get out and he does survive. It almost seems... I've been saying this the whole time. It seems planned that Dumbledore had some sort of plan going on this whole time. And it almost feels kind of... I don't want to say sick, but it almost feels that he's pushing Harry through this adventure that he's going through. And I don't know, it seems like a lot of this could be avoided. That's kind of my main overall thoughts. Maybe I'm latching on to that too much, but...
No, I can see that. There are just certain things that Dumbledore says that he shouldn't know, but he knows.
Exactly.
And they sort of write it off in the whole, oh, well, he's Dumbledore, he knows everything. And it's like, yeah, but did you really need to give him the cloak? Did you really know, like, did you know how many nights he spent at the mirror?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, when Harry says, what does he say? That Dumbledore seems to give us just enough in case we would try? How does he know that these three brand new kids who he has never spoken to are gonna try, as opposed to the other several hundred?
And it's also interesting that we're introduced to the fact that Dumbledore is there from the outset in Harry's life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's there in chapter 1. It seems like maybe he felt that he had a hand in the pond in the beginning, and he wants to see something out. Is kind of where I'm left to as a reader.
Okay.
I don't know if I completely buy into the Dumbledore as the overall puppet master all the time. I can see where it looks like that, but I think a lot of it comes down to Harry playing the hero as well. And, like, going down the trapdoor, I don't think that was Dumbledore's intention. I really never thought, yeah, Dumbledore's sitting there going, saying, hey, I think these kids should have a chance. Like, yeah, like Wilson was just saying, why would you single these three out? And it seems irresponsible.
Yeah.
You're his primary goal, his primary job is to keep the kids safe and teach them and give them experience and things like that. But I just think he's more responsible overall than him being a puppet master on something this dangerous.
How many students in the school do you think could complete all of those tasks? Because
independently?
Maybe how many combinations of 3?
There you go. Like, that's a different piece as well.
Because none of them would
have done it alone.
Exactly.
No.
I would say you probably have some 5th, 6th, 7th years. I would say by about 5th year you could...
Which seems irresponsible.
Yeah, I agree.
Those challenges should have been a lot tougher.
Yeah.
I agree. But you do... And I would argue that, though, because you do have arguably, from what been presented in this book, the best seeker in the school in the past however long, you know. There's a specific Quidditch challenge, it seems.
But think about, like, the plant. What was the name of the plant? The venomous
Devil Snare?
The Devil Snare. Okay, so the Devil Snare. So the Devil Snare is the plant guarding it. They taught the Devil Snare to first years.
Right.
If it's really that dangerous and really that big of a deal, maybe you shouldn't be teaching that. Or, if that's something you teach in first years, can you find a plant you don't teach?
Yeah, so that may be a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, like I'm gonna put this thing here that nobody can get past, but it's cool, because my first years know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And also, in terms of overall just general security, why are we even putting challenges in here that, you know, maybe there's supposed to be challenges that students won't get, but if they're challenges that are instituted by teachers that, you know...
To prevent an adult from...
Right, exactly. To prevent the person who's trying to bring back Lord Voldemort.
This goes back to what I've been saying all along about how Fluffy should not be locked in a room.
No.
He's a living, breathing creature who needs sometimes to go outside and use it, and isn't being allowed to, and who knows how he gets fit. Like, that alone is bothersome to me, like the lack of care. Now, before we go any further, the logic puzzle is amazing.
That's
great.
One of my favorite moments in the book.
Yeah.
I remember the first time reading that, and it was just so unexpected. And that's the beauty of it, is that you wouldn't expect that. And you're like, oh, I'm doing these magic things. You know, I'm playing a game of chess. I'm fighting a troll. And then I have to actually think for a second. Like, that, it's a totally different ballgame.
I think before I'm even introduced to the fact that Snape isn't the bad guy, I think that because chapter 16, which is what the trapdoor is in, where at the end of it we're introduced to the cliffhanger that it's not Snape or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Even before that, Snape's test was that potions test, and it gave me, you know, I don't want to say like plus points, but a little bit more sympathetic towards Snape and how great his task was. Is the only task that actually, you know,
had to do something.
Had to do. You know what I mean?
Well, my other thought about it is everything else in here is so fantastical, but I could make a potion.
Right.
I could go solve a logic puzzle. Those are the pieces that made it feel like it was embedded in the real world. And, like, that's the start of, I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of people are waiting for their Hogwarts letter? Like, real life people who wish they could go to Hogwarts. And it's for reasons like that. It's not the wand waving and the broomsticks and the making feathers fly. All that's really cool. But it's because I can follow a recipe and make a potion. And I can figure out a logic puzzle. These are skills that I have. So imagine what other skills I might have. It's the gateway into believing that you belong at Hogwarts.
Yep.
Right.
Any other thoughts before we move into your 2 burning questions?
My main major thought has to do with chapter 16. And it stems off of the question asked by Hermione, of which, you know, why do all this? We can get expelled or even worse, or we can get killed or even worse expelled, which is a great quote.
I love that.
but she's showing extreme, not uninterest, but she's going against Harry's vision of capturing the stone and securing it.
Right.
My question is, why does Harry care so much, or is so afraid? Because his reasoning is, we're going because it won't matter because Voldemort will come back and we'll all be dead and school won't be matter anyways. Why is he so afraid of Voldemort coming back when he has, one, just been introduced to the wizarding world, and two, has already shown that he is not afraid of him, because the only people that he's been introduced to in the wizarding world say that the one thing you can't do is say his name, and he's already gone against that. He's already proven that he doesn't care about that. While I understand he's lost his family and his whole past to that, and he's just being introduced to that, I don't understand why his quest is, he's so diligent on not having him come back when he doesn't really understand the full power that he has.
Or have any ownership in it.
Exactly. That's my biggest misunderstanding about how he's so against it.
I think the losing of the parents is a pretty big one on that. And Harry cares about other people. You know,
right. He is a true Gryffindor.
He's caring overall, and I don't think that he wants him to come back because he doesn't want someone else to go through what he went through without having parents. I mean, we're pretty lucky on that one. It's right. Hard for us to really fathom what that would be like. So
I'm not trying to downplay that at all.
Yeah, no, and to me, I think that might be enough, almost.
Yeah.
Well, I almost look at it from a different perspective, although I agree with you. Like, look at the people whose job it is every day to serve and protect. Look at the hundreds of thousands of people in the military. I would never go join the military. I am not going to put myself in a place to get shot at and killed, but they do. Because somebody has to. So why not me?
Right.
Or the Secret Service. The Secret Service, they practice drills for what happens if the president gets shot at, right? And so there's somebody whose job it is to drive the car, and somebody else whose job it is to get the president to the ground, somebody else's job. There's another guy whose job it is to stand in front of the bullet. Not shoot the shooter, not help the president. There's a guy whose job it is to step in front of the bullet. That's what Harry is. He's just a guy who's gonna step in front of the bullet. It is not a personality trait that I have, but that's like the best real-world example I can find of what Harry's doing. Somebody has to. Why not be me? And if it's me, then I know that I can save someone else doing it.
Right.
It's really
and that's
hard.
heroic.
It is heroic.
That's a very good word. I mean, it really is.
Yes.
It's very heroic. He doesn't have a lot of self-preservation.
Right. But how could he with the life that he lived?
He doesn't need to. Like,
exactly.
At his point, I don't need to. It's all right, Mike.
I know that's a tough question.
No,
no, it's
not
good.
at all.
That was
It's
a good one for sure.
But that was just the
way
biggest,
better than my questions.
the biggest thing, in the back of my head.
Oh, good. Any thoughts on chapter 17 and like the culminating like events there, or is it like the leading up was better than the?
I definitely think the leading up was better than the not the letting down, but the leaving off
the
for
climax
the next.
and then the
ending. I wish we could have seen kind of what happened after Harry blacked out. I wish we could have seen that a little bit more. I understand the writing techniques that are used, but I don't know. I feel like there wasn't much special that happened in that last chapter. We kind of got to wrap up a little bit. We were let off to see what happens next year at school, and
your Gryffindors won the cup.
He's not a Gryffindor. He's a Slytherin. Chill out.
Yeah,
I'm calling him.
He's not happy about it.
I was trying to forget about that one. It was a little bit of
Bird.
a tough tickle.
And did you feel like I really liked that Dumbledore was there at Harry's bedside, although you haven't spoken to Harry yet this year, so I find that odd. But it felt a little after-school specialist or Disney Channel special movie. Like, you did all this, now let me explain to you what it meant, the whys meant to...
Right. A little magic school bussy.
And I do really feel like the first book, and spoiler alert, the first few books have sort of that feel to it. It definitely changes as the series goes on.
Right.
As it should, as he grows up.
Okay, because you brought it up, the point system at the end, I know you guys talked about it.
Gosh.
Slytherin should have won. We should have taken it over.
I'm not agreeing with you. Because I just think in general, like, I don't think Quidditch should count for the House Cup.
What?
I don't. Because the House Cup should be based on, like...
Merit.
Yeah. She says as a teacher. But I also think that Quidditch points are horribly scored. I didn't used to think that, but Luke and Abby have changed my mind dramatically on that. So, good job. But then I also think, like, points are so subjective, which we've talked about as well. This teacher might hand out 1 point to every student a student every class. Somebody else might not give points for months. And so if I'm really good in this one class, but that's the teacher who doesn't give out, you know what I mean? Or I maybe got caught doing something, but nobody else did, so they all did it, but they didn't lose points. That doesn't really show the work. But there's no like, good system.
Even on like that, when Malfoy loses less points for being out, and then the 3 Gryffindor students get 50 points each. Like, that's not even close to being fair. Like, that's ridiculous.
And I see why she did it. I totally sympathize with McGonagall at that point. Because it's, you're going to argue with me? Let's make it worse. Keep trying. Because a lot of the time, you have to keep that power. As a teacher, as a parent, as the adult in the room. Like, I don't want to care about this. I don't want to have to be mean about this. But if you're going to keep pushing, you have to learn that that's not okay. I don't want to make the 50 points each. That's not what I want to do. But you've pushed me. Because now you're arguing with me. So now I gotta make my point. And if I make my point really big, maybe you won't do it again. It's not for fun. It's not because I can, it's because I have to. And I think McGonagall's really good at knowing when she has to, but knowing that it's because she has to and not because she can.
Alright, let's get into your 2 burning questions.
Alright.
You ready?
I guess.
Why can't Harry, Ron, and Hermione just listen to McGonagall and wait for Dumbledore?
I think because Harry has such a personal tie to this situation that's going on, he won't. And I believe that Ron and Hermione at this point are already so loyal to him that they'll, even in the way his personality is, Harry is so confident when he believes in something, and we've already seen that. But like we kind of talked about earlier with losing his parents and being anti-Voldemort, and I think he'll do anything in his power to take the bullet for the rest of the world, like you kind of said. And I think that's why he's personally so adamant on this, and he believes that waiting is not an option. And I believe that he's confident enough to do it without Harry, or without Ron and Hermione, but they're loyal enough to not let him. So I believe that that's why they stick with him. And even if they wouldn't have, he would have done it himself.
And for chapter 17, how did Snape know throughout the course of the story? How did Snape know what Quirrell was up to?
I think because Snape isn't the kind of guy to be afraid of challenging somebody on a simple, not necessarily mistake, but oddity in their daily lives. I feel like Quirrell maybe was an odd guy, a different guy, a guy who kind of stuttered, who wore a turban every day to maybe just because, or maybe to hide something. I think Snape's the kind of guy who, whether he's going to offend you or not, he's going to be logical about the situation and step in and ask questions where questions need to be asked. But I don't think he's afraid to ask maybe even the wrong question at the right time, because I don't mean, from this book, he wasn't the bad guy. He was definitely not the best guy in the book. He didn't really seem that great, but he definitely seemed logical. He definitely seemed like he was not going to take no for an answer. And I honestly don't really know what his agenda is or what he really wants, but from the end of it, he definitely doesn't want to hurt somebody else, at least is what it seems to me. So hopefully he's just trying to do his best to help everybody around him.
All right, so now we come to, what is your favorite line in these 2 chapters?
Just going off of getting done with talking about Snape's logic, my favorite line has to do with logic, but it's not from Snape, it's from Hermione. It's in chapter 16, and she says, "This isn't magic, it's logic. It's a puzzle. A lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. They'd be stuck in here forever." And that's in relation to Snape's puzzle that he leaves or his task that he leaves to protect the Sorcerer's Stone with the potions. And I definitely just think that's my favorite line.
Who was your favorite character?
In these last two chapters, I'm going to have to say that Hermione is my favorite character because she is the most effective, not only magic user, but purveyor of ideas and what the right idea and what the right thing to do is. She's always asking Harry what he really wants to do and whether he really believes it's important or not.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to read it with us.
Yeah, guys.
Get your second book ready.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've got a few weeks and we're going to start rolling with book 2, Chamber of Secrets.
I can't wait. I'm glad that you guys are letting me come on this adventure with you.
So as we were reading this book, I don't know about the rest of you, but it really just felt like a great big mystery novel, more than anything else, with a lot of, super sleuthy clues sprinkled throughout, that it's not until you've read the whole thing or reread it 400 times, like some people, and you realize that she's been leading you this whole time to kind of give you an idea about who the big baddie is and why he's doing these things.
So we have brought in our private eye Harry Potter detective, our brother Benji, who has come up with the full list of Professor Quirrell's bad guy breadcrumbs. Benji, take it away.
The following is a timeline of events which led to the demise of Aquarius Quirrell. July 1991. We find Professor Quirrell in the Leaky Cauldron, shaking hands with the newly arrived Harry Potter. We find him trembling and twitching as he speaks with a distinct stutter. Quirrell advised he was heading to Diagon Alley to buy a new book on vampires. Quirrell at the time leaves Leaky Cauldron to enact his real plan. He heads towards Gringotts Bank, and after deftly maneuvering security the goblins have in place, he finally reaches Vault 713, only to find it empty. He returns to his master and informs him of what he found. Understandably, Voldemort is furious and decided that he would have to stay much closer to Quirrell to keep him from failing again. September 1991. During the Starred Term Feast, Professor Quirrell is speaking with Professor Snape when Severus looks past him. Quirrell, a bit confused, has a sudden but immense rush of excitement. October 1991. During the Halloween feast, Quirrell is seen sprinting in the Great Hall when he reaches the head table. He tells Dumbledore and the rest of the staff, "Troll! In the dungeon. Thought you ought to know." Before he collapsed. Quirrell was then next observed in the bathroom with Snape and McGonagall confronting Harry, Ron, and Hermione, well away from the dungeons where the rest of the staff was told to go. November 1991. During a Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin, Harry Potter's broom suddenly lurched and started to try to buck Harry off as though it were jinxed. Hermione Granger, with some quick thinking, found who she believed to be the culprit, Professor Snape, staring at Potter, muttering what looked to be an incantation. What she did not notice, however, was Professor Quirrell doing the exact same thing, and inadvertently knocked him over as she hurried to stop Snape. This caused Quirrell to break eye contact, and Harry was able to recover and eventually win the game. January 1992. Professors Quirrell and Snape are overheard in the Forbidden Forest talking about the Sorcerer's Stone and the protections around it. April 1992. Hagrid receives a dragon's egg from a hooded stranger in a pub. The stranger, however, wants to make sure Hagrid can handle the dragon and asks him about other magical creatures he is taking care of. Hagrid, under the influence of a few too many pints of mead, tells the traveler about Fluffy, his three-headed dog. He also lets slip, "Fluff is a piece of cake if you know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit of music and he'll go straight off to sleep." With that information, the stranger gave Hagrid the dragon's egg and departed. That stranger was none other than Quirrell. May 1992. We next hear Professor Quirrell in the classroom apparently being threatened by an unknown person. During our investigation, we learned that it was Lord Voldemort threatening he needed to be provided with unicorn's blood to help maintain his strength. A few days later, we discover a shadowy figure attacking a defenseless unicorn in the Forbidden Forest before being scared off by Frenzy the centaur. Yet again, that cloaked figure was none other than Quirrell. June 1992. As the school year draws to a close, we learn that Professor Dumbledore has been called away to London on urgent business, fearing the Sorcerer's Stone to be in jeopardy. Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger trail the would-be thief past the three-headed dog and through a series of magical protections, only to find one, Quirinius Quirrell, standing in front of the mirror of Erised, speaking to a bodiless voice, trying to figure out how to get the stone. The one thing Quirrell did not realize, though, is the stone would only be found by somebody who only wanted to find it, not use it. After this final disappointment, Lord Voldemort finally reveals himself, attached to the back of Quirrell's head, having been concealed by the turban since his failure at Gringotts. When Harry refuses to turn the stone over to Lord Voldemort, he orders Squirtle to seize him and take it. However, to Quirrell's demise, since he let Voldemort share his body, the protection Harry was left with by his mother made it quite impossible for Quirrell to hold on to him. Harry turned this to his advantage and grabbed a hold of the two-faced man, causing him to scream in agony. Voldemort, realizing he had been defeated once again, fled Quirrell's body, leaving him to die.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into talking about not just the last two chapters, but the book as a whole, Luke and I felt that it was very important to bring in our panel of experts. We want to welcome back to the podcast our first-time reader, our youngest brother, Riley. Riley, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
We also have our roving Quidditch correspondent, our sister Abby.
Hey, guys.
Also joining us, you just heard from him, is our brother Ben, who is our Harry Potter detective, trying to catch those bad guy clues as we go through the book again.
Howdy, howdy. All right, so with everyone here, let's take a look at something we've been avoiding a bit throughout the whole read-through, and let's actually take a look at the cover for the first time.
And literally, like, for some of us, it's the first time, because I don't know if any of you are like me. I look at a book and it's like, title, open page read. There's no pictures. I don't pay attention. I just want to read it.
And on my end, I'm an audiobook listener, so I don't actually see any of the cover sheets or cover pages or anything like that, and so I don't ever see any of the illustrations.
I put mine on my bookshelf.
I just, I don't understand. I read the book. I want to close. I just pull the little flap off. I put the flap on the page where I am. It comes with a bookmark. Like, it's a built-in bookmark.
I throw mine away.
Yeah, I take mine off while reading it, and then, put it somewhere safe so it doesn't get messed up, and then put it back on when I'm done.
Like the bookshelf.
I just don't understand.
Yeah. No.
It's part of the book. I think that's my other thing, too, is, being a book purist.
Snob.
Yeah. My favorite smell is the smell of the interior of a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it took me a very long time to get to the point of, downloading books onto
Like a Kindle.
Any reader.
right, or in any kind of e-readers, but I have to hold my book. Benji, you've been an audiobook listener for years and years and years, and I always thought you were crazy, but you're not holding a book. So for me, to take the book jacket off feels like sacrilegious against the book, because it came with the book, so you have to keep it on the book. I don't understand.
It's only there to keep it from getting dusty. That's it. It's a dust cover person.
It's funny because it's there to protect the actual book, but I actually take it off to protect the cover.
Yeah,
to protect
exactly. I want the cover to look nice.
Yeah.
You people are weird.
Hey, guess what? We still read the same book.
Yeah.
Okay, so the actual cover, the picture on there, if you look at it just briefly, you see a boy flying a broom, which initially you think, oh, great, magic, they're flying brooms, because witches and flying on brooms are very synonymous.
Yeah.
But there are some interesting details that give away a lot of the story, to be honest. First of all, Harry's catching a snitch.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Flying.
And one of my favorite things is, on the back of the book, you see a bludger.
Chasing him?
Yes. There's also an owl flying on the back.
Yeah, I saw the owl.
You've got Dumbledore in his purple robe and his beard flying. I like that a
I
lot.
didn't even notice that.
You've got your unicorn. Fluffy is in the castle.
Fluffy's in the castle.
And then hanging off on the side, it's a little hard to see, probably right as it flips around, is the guy holding the little candles sneaking. So that's probably an attribute to the late night sneaking out, the midnight duel, and when Harry was wandering at Christmas time. So there's definitely some story clues in our book jacket here, which should not be removed. Along with the flying key, there's a key in there. There's just a lot of little details that were put in that, quite frankly, none of us would notice ahead of time. But going back, it's really interesting to see.
I'm interested that you say you believe that it kind of spoils it. I understand why you wouldn't talk about it till the end, but, looking at it, I just think it adds more interesting a pull or appeal to picking up the book and seeing, oh, there's going to be unicorns and flying brooms and whatever that gold thing that he's trying to catch in there.
So, having said that, Riley, since you're our official first-time reader, as we start getting into book 2, which means you need to start reading book 2, new assignment, are you going to look now at the book jacket before you take it off and put it on the shelf? Are you going to take a look at the book jacket and sort of look for those clues ahead of time before you set that aside so you can preview something?
Yeah, I think definitely it is kind of interesting to get familiar with what the author asks the illustrator to present to you right off the bat and see if you can hold on to those and pick them up throughout the story. So I'll definitely try to look at that and analyze it a little bit, maybe remember some of the key details on it.
Nice. All right. Any final thoughts on the cover illustration?
I remember looking at them as a kid and having a nice bridge between being young and having those picture books and now being a little bit older and expected to read books without any pictures, and really loving the ability to go back and see some illustrations. Like, get a picture in your mind of what we're really talking about.
So almost as like a bridge between the picture book world and the chapter book, more adult reading world.
Exactly. It was just real easy for me as a kid. I loved it.
All right. So the next section we're going to do for our special end of book spectacular is really comparing this particular read-through of the stories to the first time you read it. So Luke, let's start with you. How was reading through it this time, especially as detailed as you and I in particular got, how was that compared to the first time you read it?
So I think the biggest change for me was actually reading each chapter one at a time. And I think some of the unfortunate hatred that we had for Hagrid at times was a bit
harsh. Maybe. Team Hagrid.
Team Hagrid all the way.
Hold on, let's stop there. So Riley and Abby are definitely people who have given us trouble. Benji, how do you fall on the Hagrid versus non-Hagrid bashing?
Hagrid is a plot device. Hagrid is a good-souled character. However, Hagrid is an idiot. I fall straight in the middle. No, I am straight in the middle. He is an idiot. He is a plot device. But he does things with good intentions. But the road to nowhere is paved with good intentions.
But what's the difference between Hagrid and Dumbledore? That's my question. Why are they so different? Hagrid gives him information he shouldn't have. Dumbledore gives Harry things he shouldn't have. Or, yes, the invisibility cloak is his father's. But they both kind of are giving this 11-year-old more than you would naturally give an 11-year-old. Why is Hagrid the bad guy when Dumbledore's the genius?
We never said he was the bad guy.
We
never said bad guy.
In my mind, Hagrid is a tool utilized by Dumbledore. He is a good character, smart character, plot device for sure. And I think Dumbledore, the difference between them is that Dumbledore knowingly puts Hagrid in situations where he will also give Harry information, just like he intentionally does himself. So I don't think they're much different. I think they're both devices of Dumbledore's. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Make them friends.
Yes, but Dumbledore did not tell Hagrid to give away how to get past Fluffy in the...
Yeah, but Dumbledore wouldn't have put Hagrid in charge of a task to protect the stone if he didn't know.
So my major problem, I think, with Hagrid is he personally says, right when they go to Diagon Alley, they go to Gringotts, and he says that Dumbledore gives him these hard, special jobs because he trusts me, you see? And Hagrid, throughout the entire book, goes against that trust and tells Harry things that Dumbledore doesn't want him to know at that time. And it is completely irresponsible, and it's terrible.
I mean, Hagrid says he gives them because he trusts him, but Dumbledore might give it to them because he knows he's an idiot.
See, the problem is, Hagrid thinks he's doing things the right way, but he's quite literally doing exactly what Dumbledore tells him not to do.
Okay, and this is really fun. We do want to move on. So we're just going to whip around really quick. Yeah. One last thought about the Hagrid issue before we lay it to rest to pick back up again, possibly, in the future. Abby, let's start with you.
I hate that you made me question my love for him. or his good intentions. I don't like that at all.
Riley.
Ditto.
Well spoken. Ben.
And in the very first chapter, Dumbledore advises that he trusts Hagrid by entrusting him to pick up Harry and bring him back to the Dursleys. From there, I will go with the mindset of if Dumbledore trusts him, I trust him. I don't agree with some of his actions. I don't think he's the brightest bulb, but I trust him.
Luke.
I think he's a plot device that J.K. totally abused, and it's unfair to Hagrid, because I think he is a good character overall. Melissa.
I agree with all of you, but at no point was getting a dragon good intentions. That was purely selfish. Okay, Luke, any other change of thoughts or feelings as we read through this time?
Oh, yeah, so the very first time, I read this, right when you get to Diagon Alley, or right when you get to Hogwarts, and I think we kind of talked about this in those chapters, is like, the magic is still there for me, and it's fun, it's whimsical, it has just the right amount of silliness that makes it seem more real, and I don't know, I'm still waiting for my letter.
Me too. It's late.
Yeah.
So is my daughter, and it's a year late for her.
Going off that really quickly, because this is technically my first time reading through it, I have read the first 2 chapters probably 14 times as a kid. Could never get through them. I for some reason I'm not interested. I do feel that like getting to the Diagon Alley and to the school, it's the magic and the whimsicalness. Like I feel like a child reading it. Like it gives me that fun. I only can imagine what it would be like if I read it when I was 13.
I did read it when I was at 13, and it was amazing. It's still amazing, which is the best part. I remember vividly reading about going into Diagon Alley for the first time. I'll never forget when Hagrid tapped on those little bricks and that wall unfolded.
The 3 up, 2 across.
Abby, I have to tell you, when you were reading, like, I was so happy that you finally found something that you like.
Book-wise.
Yeah. Found it worth reading for. It was very big for me as the oldest, and we're missing a sibling, by the way, all of you listeners out there. There's another one between me and Benji. So as the oldest one here, I watched all these guys grow up, and really like Abby wasn't a reader, and Riley wasn't a reader, and Matthew wasn't a reader, and Benji wasn't a reader, and Luke was, but he was a lot younger than me. So like I was a reader all the time, and so like I watched all of them going, oh my God, they're not reading books. They all hate books. They hate books. And I'm not kidding you, and you will laugh, but Harry Potter came. And we had 5 copies of it
I was
at
last
their
one.
house. And I wasn't living there at the time because I had already, I was old
4.
when I moved out.
I never had a copy.
Oh, okay. So there were 4 copies of the first book in one house because they were all reading at the same time. And as a big sister, it was such a thank goodness, I'm so happy moment.
Yeah. No, I can respect that. I totally get that. Like, my story with it, basically, I was the last one of all those siblings to read it, because like Riley, I read the first 2 chapters probably 7 times, and was like, nope, I'm bored. I'm out. I just, but then I stayed a weekend at Melissa's apartment, because her parents were out of town, and she basically said, read through chapter 7. If you can read through chapter 7 and put it down, you can walk away.
I'm going to stop you right there. Do you want to know where I got that advice from? I'm going to do a high school teacher shout out. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Shuey, always said, yes, see?
Yep, I had her.
We're going to tag her in this. Always said, you have to give a book 100 pages. You have to give a book. If you're going to pick it up, you owe the book 100 pages. If the author has not captured your attention within the first 100 pages, well, then that's their fault. But if you don't give it 100 pages, that's your fault.
And that's fair. And that's what it was. And I ended up reading the first 2 books in the very first night. Stayed up all night long, read the first 2 books, and the 3rd book was finished 2 days later. And then 4th book had just come out, finished that one. Then I had a nice long wait. Well, yes, but at least you guys had a little bit of time. Like, I binged in a week and a half. I had everything. Well, yeah, true, fair enough. You were the same way. But okay, going back to the whole point of this reread, listen to the podcast as it's going on, and then, I also, though, since I'm an audiobook guy, I listen to these books quite literally 4 to 5 times a year. I go through a cycle.
I'm the same way.
I've listened to about 2 chapters a night as I'm going to bed, and so it didn't feel too much different to me, this time through. except for picking up on a few nuanced things. And it's like, okay, maybe we need to look at this. And then also, with my part, I have to find where the, evilness is coming through, where the bad guy's coming through. So I was like keying in on those parts, trying to keep track of that.
I have one more thought. I never realized, I guess, until not even this read through, but until I heard the podcast, that Harry Potter killed somebody. Quirrell died. Never lost, I guess. I blew my mind.
But I think, Abby, it was specifically written that way. Mm-hmm. Because I think J.K. tried to find a way so that she does that without her young readers really realizing it.
And latching onto, oh wow, he's a murderer. Yeah. Like, that's...
Well, now, in fairness, too, Quirrell didn't die directly from Harry grabbing him. He died at
Voldemort
leaving the body. Basically ruining his body. So technically, that was one point I did want to bring up, and I'm glad you did, Abby, because you guys did make that point. Technically, Harry didn't kill him. He just caused him enough injury to where when Voldemort left, Quirrell died. So that might help a little bit.
There's very little detail about the fact that there's a dead guy.
True.
But there's a dead guy.
Oh, he got out. Cool. Next.
Yep. Well, he has to make it back through the potions. And they never revisit it again. All right. So my next thought with this, and this kind of jumps off what we were saying before, is the difference between binge reading these books and doing what you and I did, Luke, which was read a chapter, stop, take notes, process through, read a chapter, stop, take notes. There were certain chapters that were so difficult to get through. It was more challenging to read it this way, to be honest.
It was more taxing. We're taking notes on it, which obviously you're expending effort, but there were a couple in the middle that I think it came through on some of the episodes where...
And we're going to discuss some of those later, but there were some rough ones.
They weren't as fun as the very early ones and the more later ones where things are actually happening. It was more of trying to get the pieces into place, and some of it just seemed clunky.
They were plot points. They weren't discovery, and they weren't climax. It was just a plot, a step in the path.
So, and I kind of dig, personally, I like those, the builder, the filler style stuff. But I can see where, for you guys, having to do the real slow read, the details of...
I like that filler stuff, too, if I was, plowing through it.
Yeah. Riley, do you have any thoughts on that?
I would just say, I really liked that maybe some of, early to middle stuff was seemingly quicker. Like you said, they're kind of plot points. Maybe they dragged on certain things, but it seemed like it would maybe drag on to an event, and then it's jump forward to Halloween, jump forward to Christmas. I personally like the faster moving paces. Maybe it kind of drags on those spots, but I don't know. I enjoyed the whole book, 100%. I thought it was all good. So
I will say the hardest time to do that this time was at the end of chapter 16, because it wasn't Snape. It wasn't even Voldemort. And I had to stop. Now, I knew what was coming.
You know what the answer is.
I've read it 20 times or whatever. I know what's coming. I still,
it's painful to close the book.
The amount of effort it took to stop, put it down, and walk away. It was, actually physically difficult.
Yeah, I think that goes to how well she did craft it.
Yep.
To lead into that whole, that, because chapter 16, it's so long, and, you go through...
It doesn't feel long.
I know, but you go from the dormitory down past Neville, down through the hallways, get through Fluffy, go through all of the obstacles, and then it's okay, all right, this is what we're working for, this is what we're working for, and
yeah,
yep.
And one thing going to the illustrations back, what you were saying is, as soon as you flip the page, you know what's going on. And that was one thing, because I did go through and look at the illustrations. If you look at the illustration for chapter 17...
It's Quirrell.
It's Quirrell.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's okay, but yeah, having to stop there, it's because I don't know how it's set up, if it's the end's here and the next page is here, or if it is a turn the page.
I think you have to turn the page.
See, and that makes... Okay. And that, to me would be I would have to turn the page. And just to see the picture, even knowing now, kind of thing. I've actually read the books.
I definitely read them the first time going through chapter by chapter because I couldn't read more than that. That was enough at the time. And I definitely got to the end of that chapter, was really? You're not going to tell me? flip that page. That's Quirrell. Night-night, Abby.
So another thought I had about rereading this compared to compared to my first reading, my life experience has changed dramatically, as I'm sure all of us have. But I noticed that, like, I can feel my place in sort of the timeline of life has changed because I focused a whole lot on the school and teacher and, like, expectation and, like, the fact that Harry was absent for long stretches of time in his school before Hogwarts and no teacher report, like, those kinds of things that as an adult who works with kids, it's noticeable to me now, especially going slowly, that didn't used to be because, and I think it's just because I'm a teacher and have been one for so long and I'm a parent and those things are sticking out to me that would never have stuck out to me before.
No, I can definitely see that, and I never even put that together until you just said that, of him missing so much school. Like, I always thought that he was just like, he'd go to school and be grounded, but now that you say that, I'm thinking back to the chapter, yeah, he was
It specifically says, by the time he got out of the cupboard, school holidays had begun.
Yeah, no, it did. I just, again, took it a different way, but wow, that's creepy.
Welcome to me.
Yeah.
My last one is, I can't believe I now hate Petunia more than Vernon.
That was a big change. Like, I definitely know, like, the first time reading through, Vernon really stands out. I mean, because he's the loud one, and it's always him that's doing things directly to Harry, it seems like. And until you actually take a step back and, like, it's all Petunia really putting him up to, yeah. It's a totally different mind change that I didn't anticipate going into it either.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we really talked about that in the first 5-chapter recap when you guys asked me who's the bad guy, and I said Vernon, and you guys all you both nodded your heads and smiled and were like, yeah, we kind of expected that. But as you talk about Petunia really calling the shots or pulling the strings, like, it makes sense to me definitely now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up on that without the over-analytical mindset of the book.
I completely agree. I always just kind of grouped those two together, Vernon and Petunia. But now, looking at it through your eyes, I guess you'd say, it's just so apparent just like how weak and awful of a person can be so jealous to abuse a child. It's ridiculous.
No, great. I'm the same way. Like, I didn't really think too much about her. She's always been kind of in passing until later on. Mm-hmm. To me, and apart from her one explosive thing, it's like, but then, yeah, like Abby said, listen to what you guys had brought up, and it was like, well, yep. No, she's the worst. Nice. Yep, she's the worst.
Right.
So, before we get into our full book superlatives, I've got one more thing to talk about. So, what do you think of the title of this book? So, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I'll even throw Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in there. How well do you think that fits this story?
I think it's perfect. I think it gives you enough of an idea. It doesn't give you an idea of anything that the book is about. Apart that it's a person named Harry Potter, and there's something called the Sorcerer's Stone, the Philosopher's Stone. That's it. But you can already tell, again, with the cover, you can tell it's magical. You can tell there's some kind of cool story behind there. And it's the main focus of the book, but it's also not, it's the main goal of the book, the main end point, but, it's kind of one of those, it's a very subtle thing. It's a very, minor kind of plot point, even though it's the main goal, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of... That
there's a world beyond just this limited story of the stone.
Exactly.
But the stone is the story.
Exactly. And I think I think in every one of the books, she's done a great job of picking that right topic, that it's part of the story, but it's not the whole story.
I think what you're getting at is it tells the story of the book and not the story. The title, Sorcerer's Stone, is what the first book is about. The story of how the Sorcerer's Stone and how Harry Potter interact together and his experience with the stone. I obviously haven't read the ones in the future, but I'm assuming that kind of the titles of each book have to deal directly with kind of the major storylines that are going on each year throughout school.
That's exactly, after reading this book, how I've read every other Harry Potter book. What's that title? And I gotta get to the Harry Potter and the. What's that and the?
Luke, what do you think?
So, I think this book specifically, I think it doesn't fit the book very well. And I think this book specifically suffers from this because it has so much Wizarding World that it has to set up and introduce, that the Sorcerer's Stone is only a part of 2-3 chapters. And, like, yeah, it seems like everything is going forward to, you know, Hagrid gets it from Gringotts, and then we don't know anything else about it. And we don't know that it's anything really even to worry about. And then Hagrid fumbles through basically telling him exactly what it is. And
every time Hagrid does something, it shows up.
Pretty much. And, I don't know, the French title for this book is Harry Potter and the School of Magic. And I think this, and that would be a silly name, and she wouldn't let him change it.
No.
But I think it better describes what this story is about. It's more about Harry finding himself in the Wizarding World and going to school and, just becoming a wizard himself.
But I also think it's about Harry confronting a demon of his past that he didn't know was there. Because really, the end goal was not the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone, which is what I'm going to get to in my point. It's really his trek into learning about and discovering Voldemort and finding in himself the personality of the true Gryffindor, of being somebody who's going to defend against, even though this man, this crazy psycho lord or whatever, has destroyed his entire world. So I think I agree with you.
Well, what would be the better title?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm not a writer, that's not my job.
You can't think of a hypothetical?
Good.
So, but what if you said, you kind of used the first chapter, I believe, is The Boy Who Lived, right? So what if you said Harry Potter, The Boy Who Lived?
I think that'd have been a better title for this book.
I think that'd be a good title. It's a interesting lead, and it's about his life, essentially. I mean, at least that's what I assume the series is about.
Well, are the other books titled differently in other languages going on in the series?
Well, so that's what I was going to get to. At least not, like, they're titled a little differently, just in different languages, just for different languages, I believe. But my biggest concern about the title of just book 1 is the fact that it changed for America, which is where I've been going, where I wanted to go this whole time. So you've got the Philosopher's Stone and the Sorcerer's Stone, and Lived in America, Grew up in America, Read in America, Virgin. In my head, it's Sorcerer's Stone, but it really bothers me because I wish it had just been Philosopher's Stone. I wish that what she had wanted it to be, because I feel like the word sorcerer, it conjures up like images of like Merlin and big swirls of pink sparkles and like all the Disney magic-y kinds of things. And it's not that kind of magic.
It reminds me of Jafar.
Yeah, Jafar, exactly. And so I just think she was going for a more subtler form of magic with the term Philosopher's Stone. And more of an alchemist kind of a thing. Go ahead, Luke. You've got a look.
Philosopher is a bad term to use for what Nicholas Flamel is.
And I'm not saying that's not true, too. I just wish the term had been consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think sorcerer is a much better word because it is having to do with magic. It doesn't have to do
technically, I think it should be the alchemist stone.
I was
waiting.
Yeah. I'm just picking between those two. The alchemist stone would be better. Harry Potter, The Boy Who Lived, and he hangs out with the Alchemist Stone. That's the name of the book.
It's just called Two Brothers.
Two Brothers.
No. Harry Potter, book the first.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's a different series.
I wouldn't.
The first year, right? Like
year 1.
Well, that's what's on. That's what it says on the spine.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm the first time reader, I'm going to say that I think the first year or like book 1. I like the Sorcerer's Stone. It adds a mysticism to the series. Maybe it doesn't fully describe the book and what it's all about, but I think, like you said, the main storyline, which is the Sorcerer's Stone, has to take a back seat in this book because she's doing such a good job at introducing the rest of the world. I still don't think that it's not the main storyline of the book, and I still think that if she's using the main storyline of each book in the title, I believe that the Sorcerer's Stone is the best choice. And I think it adds a mysticism and an allure to the book when you pick it up in a bookstore, rather than Harry Potter the first year, or something kind of bland like that.
Yeah, no, I'll buy that. Alright, let's get into our whole book superlatives. So, Melissa, what would you say was your favorite chapter in this book?
Well, my favorite chapter is chapter 1 because I really think it's a great way to hook everybody into the story. I know some of you have said earlier that you read the first 2 chapters 7 times or whatever, and you just had to put it down. But if you really go back and look, Vernon and Petunia are fully formed horrible people right from the get-go. You know exactly how Dudley's going to turn out. You know exactly who McGonagall is. You know exactly who Dumbledore is. And the juxtaposition of what we consider the normal world versus the magical world in that chapter alone, I mean, that just sucks you in. It sets you up. There's something really cool going on.
Yeah, I think it's a great chapter. And it's one of my favorites for sure.
No, I absolutely agree. That's why I could always read chapter 1. It was chapter 2 that was.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think chapter 2 is a little weak.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hold that thoughts. All right.
My favorite chapter, I was kicking it back and forth between 2 of them, but I will go with Through the Trapdoor. I think that one encompasses all the coolness of this book. It's like you get the heartfelt Neville, who tries to do the right thing. You get the dramatic, fall down the cliff or down the hole past Fluffy through all the trials and tribulations and everything. All 3 of the trio, shining at some point, being that standout person, showing their skills and everything like that. And then it leaves a cliffhanger, and I love cliffhangers. So Through the Trapdoor is my personal favorite.
Great chapter.
Mm-hmm. I'll go because my favorite chapter is also chapter 16, Through the Trapdoor. When I read a book, watch a TV show, watch a movie, this is going to sound kind of weird, I don't fully enjoy it until not the climax, but the penultimate climax. I really enjoy everything that builds up to that. That's what I look for in every story that I read, every show that I watch, everything that builds up to the big moment in the story. And for me, like you said, I think this is the big moment. Obviously, the duel at the end of the book is the big moment, but really, this chapter 16 holds all of what the 3 kids learned in the first year. It's kind of interesting that the 3 first-year students can get through all of these crazy tasks. I know you guys mentioned that, but
I'm trying really hard to control my eye roll.
Yeah, I know, but I think it adds. It's the action of the story. A lot of build-up goes in before that, and it builds up to this moment. So that's why I really liked the chapter.
I have one thing to add to that. Everybody says Hermione was a first year, blah, 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 blah. Her birthday, technically, is in September of the year before, so she is well older, almost a year older than Harry.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's almost a second year, the age of a second year by this point. Just saying, she's a little bit more advanced.
And I've always thought that. She's always been advanced anyway, and her birthday's ahead, and she's a girl. She's got them beat on maturity by
And she's the best birthday that there is.
She really has the same birthday as you?
Mm-hmm.
That's hysterical. Of course she does.
Talk like Pirate Day. Yeah, sorry. Anyway,
All
sorry.
Right. Abby, what's your favorite chapter?
Well, I've already spoken about it today, but definitely chapter 5, Diagon Alley. It was the first time in any book ever that I had read that I actually got a picture in my mind. Like, I could see what the author was writing, and it was a picture in my mind, and it was amazing. And that, for me, was so huge in my life that chapter 5, Diagon Alley, probably will be my favorite chapter of any book ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Me too.
That's way up on my list too. Really, every chapter we've said, I think it's pretty easily top 5 in anyone's list. I think pretty hard to beat.
Right.
The one that I'm going to throw in there as my favorite chapter is chapter 12, The Mirror of Erised.
Nice.
And some of it's a little silly, and you could talk of how it seems like Dumbledore set this all up to happen. I'm not sure I still buy all of that, but when it comes down to Harry finally feeling what he's never had, he realizes the pit that's in his soul from not having that family and having nothing. I think it's the first time that child abuse from the Dursleys really kind of hits him. And It's a really good character moment for him, and right after that for Ron to help him try to get his head right, and I think it really shows Ron's care for Harry as a just a really good friend, and that's my favorite chapter.
I definitely agree with that. If you would have asked me 5 hours ago what my favorite chapter was, I would have said that. I switched a little bit ago, but I think there's a real power to showing your main character and what their deepest desire is. It really tells you as a reader.
Makes them more vulnerable and relatable.
And I think that's why I also like Ron so much, because he's the only one that we get to see, besides Quirrell at the end, obviously. But he's the only other one that we get to see who's most vulnerable, or what his deepest desire is.
Dumbledore wants socks. I would like to throw some honorable mentions in there because there are some really good chapters in there. Chapter 6, The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. Chapter 7, The Sorting Hat. And Chapter 3, The Letters from No One. Those are kind of my, if I picked Chapter 1 because I feel like if it wasn't for one, it wouldn't set up to get going. Those are sort of my others. I think it's funny. I would not have picked 16 or 12. I would have picked one of those early on, immersion.
Yeah, 7 was I was kicking back between that and 16, because that's the one that, like I said, when I read through it and got to that point, I'm like, okay, now you're not putting this down.
And really, there is nothing like walking into the Great Hall for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so now we're going to go around, and I'm going to go last with Luke on this one. What is your worst chapter?
So my least favorite chapter is Chapter 9, The Midnight Duel. And I have two main reasons for that. One is because we had a huge build-up throughout the whole chapter. Honestly, it had some of my favorite moments in the whole story. We were introduced to broomsticks, we were introduced to flying, and a little bit we hear about Quidditch, which are really interesting to me. But also we have set up this battle between Harry and his nemesis at night, and then he just doesn't show. It just is a big, it just doesn't happen. It's a blowout, and it kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit, because I was ready to see some whatever magic Harry can do. I was ready to see him beat the bad guy. So that's one reason why I don't really like the chapter that much. It seemed kind of like a cop-out almost. The second reason is because not necessarily the chapter's fault, but the character's fault of Malfoy. As a proud Slytherin, I feel that Malfoy is just played up as a bad guy so much and just a terrible character, and it makes me so sad for my wonderful house because we're so much better than that, and we really need to, Slytherins matter too. So that's all I'm saying. He's a big jerk.
all Slytherins matter.
All Slytherins matter. He's a big jerk, and he's not represent everything that we represent.
Okay, and Benji, what was your least favorite chapter?
My least favorite chapter has to be chapter number 2, The Vanishing Glass. Oh my god, this chapter was so boring. The only cool thing was a talking snake. Everything else was, oh my god, Harry Potter's getting picked on again. He has a horrible life. He's getting picked on again. And as a kid who was picked on for a long time, I felt bad for him. And I can not relate, but I can understand. And I just didn't want to read that. And I just always get so annoyed because it's just, okay. It goes from that first chapter of, oh my god, this is so cool. Wizard, here's Dumbledore magic and all this, to basically this kid's getting abused. Okay. Nothing fun or interesting happens apart from a talking snake, and every time that chapter comes up, I just trudge right through. I pump up the audiobook to 2.5 speed to make sure to go through just that much faster. So,
all right. So, Abby, then what was your least favorite?
It's hard. I don't know. I guess I would just have to say I don't have a worst chapter. There are moments that drag on, and every time I read, it's different parts, but kind of an action. So just those kind of filler or background things, they just kind of drag for me.
All right, so Luke and I haven't shared our least favorite chapter yet, and I say our least favorite chapter singular because we share the same least favorite chapter. And for those of you who've listened to the podcast, if you don't know what it is, apparently we did a good job of faking it, but I don't actually think that's true. So, Luke, are you ready would you like to give them, or should we, say it at the same time?
Our least favorite chapter. Chapter 14, Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. It is
Pointless.
It is pointless. It completely stands alone. It's a somewhat interesting little short story.
It does not move the plot along at all.
It just gets Harry in detention. That's the
Which
only
they could have
outcome.
done. They could have done it just him wandering around from another attack with Mal. Like there's a way
And
they could have done it.
with it came up when we were already pretty sour on Hagrid, and this is the worst that he did, because
Well, even
he's literally he let Fang get hurt by the dragon
and then yelled at Fang.
and then yelled, and it was Fang's fault. And then Ron gets mauled by this dragon, and it's just, come on.
Well, and not just on Hagrid. Ron leaves his letter from Charlie in his school book in that same chapter that Malfoy comes and takes. Okay, duh. What are you doing? Of course it's just little things like that in that chapter, which make this story, and I'm almost defending my leaf from chapter, make this story a little more real, is that, yeah, they're gonna screw up, they're real, they make mistakes. But reading that chapter independently of the rest of the story, as we did, like having stopped chapter 12, talked about it, and then gone back to chapter 13. Chapter 13 alone by itself,
It's frustrating.
it was painful. And I'm curious to see if we come across any more of those as we continue the series, or if her writing becomes that much tighter and that much more. Because I don't remember feeling that blatantly, annoyed with any of the other books. I will say my favorite chapter in the entire series is not in this book.
Agreed.
At all. But I do think...
Mine is so
this,
far.
But I do think Norbert is in the running for my least favorite chapter
In the series.
ever.
We'll keep track of that.
I usually play not the devil's advocate, but maybe the angel's advocate against you guys in terms of Hagrid and what some of the things that you hate on a little bit. But I will definitely say my least favorite thing about this chapter. It's also, you didn't mention it, but how do they just forget the cloak
Right.
at the top of the stairs? That's another little thing, but. That's the most important thing that Harry owns in his entire life. Maybe aside from his wand and his Nimbus 2000.
I
I would
don't know,
say
it
it's
might
more
be more
important.
important because it's from Dad.
Yeah.
To him, how do you forget that?
Well, let's not also forget the line, Hagrid, you live in a wooden house. Okay, so can we agree? It's not great.
No, agreed.
Pretty terrible
I
chapter.
wanted to stop, because when I listened to you guys' episode on that, I was like, come on, it's not that bad. And then I went back in because that's when I started my reread to get to all my stuff, and I was just like, okay, maybe it is. And then just sitting here listening to you guys, and I'm like, no, nope. There's literally nothing I can defend in that chapter. I still stand by my chapter is worse. However, I do respect it.
Okay,
Your chapter has ice cream twice. It's not worse.
I'll fall back into my role. I do like, as a dragon lover, overall, first and foremost, I am a dragon lover. I love the inclusion of dragons into this story.
I do like that it got worked in. I
Yes.
do like that part. I think it could have been smoother.
Definitely.
I
And
also think Four Broomsticks is not a very great way to transport a dragon. I like seeing so many issues.
I also like that we do get to see a little bit, maybe not Ron's family. We don't get to see him directly, but, there's more people out there.
A little more depth.
Yeah, it's a little bit of hint into his family, and that there's more people out there trying to help. So, I don't know. I definitely think it was not the greatest chapter. It has some light moments.
Well, I just don't understand how a couple 20-something bros just casually fly into and grab a dragon out of Hogwarts. How does that even work?
They didn't. They flew above.
It doesn't.
With the protection spells shouldn't. God, I didn't even think about that. Good one.
Good catch.
See?
Dragons are for the boys.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I guess my final thoughts on this are Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback is still better than hundreds of children's books out there
Yes.
as a standalone story. So we are in no way saying that you shouldn't read Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. We are, however, saying you better plow through quick and get to the next chapter.
Yes. And support your local authors.
All right. Let's go to what is the best character in this particular book. Mm-hmm.
All right, Abby, Riley,
Hermione.
Two for friend George.
Ron.
Ron.
First real friend.
First real friend.
Period.
He's exactly what Harry needed.
The reason why I think Hermione is the best character instead of Ron, well, obviously it's the choice between the two, is because I hated her at the beginning. I hated Hermione.
Sorry, that hurts.
And because Harry and Ron hated her. I felt like I was supposed to. Not hated her, but, you
were
the stick in the mud. She definitely grew on me hardcore.
And she grew.
And she did more, in my mind, than any of the other characters. She utilized the spells most effectively, came up with the best plans, pushed the guys to always be looking for the stone. In my mind, she was the MVP. And best character change.
She did grow the most in the story.
Most character growth, for sure. Abby, why Ron?
Ron, to me, he's just so normal. He's not great. He's not superiorly intelligent. He's not fantastic at sports. He's not famous. But he's a great friend. He's a normal dude who Harry needed to know that normal people aren't like the Dursleys.
All right. Now on to best illustration. What was your favorite illustration in all of the chapters?
Benji, lead us off.
Mine's actually chapter 3. The letters from no one that just encompasses what's going on. Letters coming down the chimney, and it's like, okay, we have no idea what's going to happen here.
Yeah,
but
especially being chapter 3, because at that point nothing else was.
Yeah, because the first 2 chapters were kind of, and then chapter 3, the illustration for it was interesting. Just coming down, like I said, coming down the chimney. You're like, okay, let's see what this is about.
That was my favorite as well. I enjoyed that one. Plus, you don't expect it.
No.
You know something weird's going to happen. Riley, how about yours?
For me, I was torn between 2, so I had to pick one. What I chose for my favorite is Chapter 6, The Journey to Platform 9 3/4, because it showcases the frog, the chocolate frog, and the card that Dumbledore is on. And I just thought I was going through all of them, trying to look and find the coolest picture, but to me that one just stuck out the most. Like, those are the littlest things in that chapter.
Yeah.
But just seeing them went leaps and bounds for me, because even though they were little, they were huge plot points in that chapter that Ron and Harry, bonded over. And I don't know, I really enjoyed that one, so that's what I picked.
Hey, Abby.
My favorite illustration would be, chapter 11, Quidditch.
Looking like a true Quidditch correspondent.
I know, right?
I like it because we got a visual of the sport. Definitely sports captures my mind, so seeing just a little bit of that flying and the golden snitches there, I love it.
Yeah, so my favorite illustration for one of the chapters is chapter 13, Nicholas Flamel. It shows what I'm assuming is Snape running into the forest to go talk to Quirrell after the Quidditch match. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's artistically very interesting.
It's unique from all of the other
Yeah,
ones.
it is. It's more of like an active scene than it is
just a
like
showcase of the items.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it looks pretty neat.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Now on to your favorite or the best line in the book.
Yeah, my favorite line, it's a funny one. It's, excuse me, Professor Flitwick, can I borrow wood for a moment? Wood? Thought Harry, bewildered. Was wood a cane she was going to use on him? We talked about that line at length in that chapter, and it's just so funny. Like,
I think in general, the best lines are the funny lines.
Yeah.
But mine, I went the opposite way. Just because I felt like I wanted to go with like the overall theme of the book and like the why, is there something wise you can pull out, like the wall quotes. And the one is, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Remember that. Because you could like get that tattooed or something. And
that's a wall hanger.
It is. It's a wall hanging quote. And it's not a bad thing to remember as you live.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have a favorite quote?
I have one, and one can never have enough socks, said Dumbledore. Another Christmas has come and gone, and I didn't get a single pair. People insist on giving me books. Which, to me, I know he was kind of lying about what he was seeing in the mirror and everything, but it's to the true point of pure adulthood. And as an adult now, it's like, yes, for Christmas, I love socks. I love socks. I love undershirts. I love the stuff that I need to buy for myself, but I just don't. And nobody ever buys them for me. So it's kind of one of those that just hit home. And it's like, okay, that's one of my favorite. That is my favorite line.
Riley, a favorite line?
Yeah, definitely. Big surprise. My favorite line comes from my favorite character, Hermione, in chapter 16 as well. But it's not the same scenario. It's when they're doing the potions. And she says, "This isn't magic. It's logic. A puzzle. A lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. They'd be stuck in here forever." And I just love that, because you can say that about a lot of things. Whether it comes to sports with natural talent or, that's how I kind of equate, magic.
That's how I relate that line.
Natural talent in sports and magic ability and being a wizard. Like, if you don't have logic, you're still not going to get that far. If you can't, handle your contracts or do business, you're not going to make it in the sports world. I think it's such a relatable,
life skill.
Yes, you have to be logical. You have to be able to see things from every perspective and detract all situations or de-analyze all situations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just love that about Hermione, and I love that quote, and I think it's a great thing to keep in mind throughout your whole life. So,
sure. And Abby.
My favorite line is from none other than Albus Dumbledore. And it goes, "After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure." My life, I live it as an adventure, and I hope to do the same in death.
Our next category and our last category in our superlative section is the best magic usage. Riley, you want to go with your best magic usage?
Yeah, I don't know if you would guess who used my best magic usage, but it's probably Hermione. And it's
Riley's got a crush.
Oh, you know what? I wouldn't be against it. But chapter 16 as well, favorite chapter, favorite character. Petrificus Totalis. Hermione ties up Neville when they're trying to get out of the common room. And
I'm really sorry about this.
Yes. But if you think about it, how many times in your life have you come across that guy, or girl, non-discriminatory, who's just always nagging you, or kind of annoying sometimes. You like him, you don't want to be mean to him. If you could just tie him up and leave him there for a minute,
daily.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just just stay here, Neville.
I have kids and I teach daily.
Just stay here. We'll be back.
Trust us on this one.
Just, dude, don't get involved, man. Like, everybody has that friend that needs to be Petrificus Totalis every once in a while.
It's like saying, this is not your circus, this is not your monkeys, and they don't listen to you, and you're like, I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, you want ultimate deniability. You do not want to know.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It would be so useful. My favorite use of magic would definitely be Hagrid giving Dudley that pigtail. He deserved every bit of it, too, which is the best part. And can you imagine how much the Dursleys suffered and they had to go get it removed? Amazing.
Nice.
Best magic use
Ooh, that's a
thus
good one.
far.
That is a good one.
Personally, my one is technically not a bit of magic. It is Snape's trial with the potions, using the potions as a magical tool, but making the person have to use logic to get out.
I love that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite little bits.
My favorite bit of magic was Ron actually performing the Wingardium Leviosa accurately and successfully.
Yes. Yeah.
When he had struggled so much with it, which was a big part of why they got in the situation in the first place. But it helped him, fight the troll, and it's what saved the day there. That
Definitely.
it was good for him.
My personal favorite use of magic is Hermione's fire against the Devil's Snare, but I particularly like that she had to be reminded that she could do it. So while it was Hermione's bit of magic, it was really like the combination of the three of them working together, because out of all the tasks, that's the only one they did together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was all because Harry remembered and Ron shouted and Hermione could do it, and that's kind of their MO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Plus, I really like how much trouble they give her about not remembering later, which is my very favorite. I think that might be my favorite moment in the later half of the book.
Yes.
To be honest.
Agreed. I was going to say, I thought of one great other line is, we could have died, or worse, get expelled, or I can't think of the exact quote, but that's...
Yeah, that's a good one.
Anyway, sorry.
So just to add some extra information about that magic usage, I called information from Pottermore because somebody more amazing than us already went through every book and documented every use of wand use magic, specifically wand use, in each book. And so for this book, wands are only used 17 times, which I thought was really low, to be honest with you. The first mention of a wand is in chapter 4 by Vernon Dursley. And the highest wand user in the book is actually Hermione. She uses her wand 6 times in this book. It just surprised me that there was such low wand usage.
Yeah, that is.
Mostly because we probably don't see
Do they count Hagrid?
every wand usage.
No, just he uses an umbrella.
It's still his wand.
Yeah. We think. I mean, we assume that the pieces of his wand are in
Yeah.
there. That's what we're led to believe. So I just found that interesting. Are we doing trivia? Okay.
We're in trivia.
So it's just you and I who came up with questions, right?
Right. So each of us have 3 questions, and to be fair to everyone's going to write down their answers as opposed to trying to have a buzzer and
Yeah.
try to shout the answer out.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're going to do.
And we're going to go back and forth on questions. I'll
Okay.
do one, you do one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we haven't seen each other's
Oh, I gotcha.
questions at all. So,
Here we go. Question number 1. At minimum, how many letters were sent to Harry before he was able to actually read what?
All right.
All right,
Everyone
everybody.
got their answers? Yeah.
All right, we're going to go youngest to oldest on this one.
You said 500?
Okay? Abby, Luke, you're next. Man, I should have.
67. Abby?
800?
Okay.
67.
The correct answer is at least 160.
Jeez.
Here's why. I have the explanation.
Because we counted these out.
Yeah, we did.
That's-
Which is why I feel
Because it
it's
was
extra
67
funny.
or 77. Right?
No,
but then you probably
because
forgot the
you
hotel.
forgot about. I got about at least 100
100.
of these.
Yeah, I
at
thought
the hotel.
I was thinking that too. When
So, day 1 he got 1. Day 2 he got 1. Day 3 he got 3. Day 4 he got 24 inside of the eggs. Day 5, 30 to 40-ish through the fireplace. Day 6, 100 at the hotel. Day 7, and then 1 handed to Harry by Hagrid.
Okay. So the final answer was what?
At least 160, with the variation being 30 to 40 through the fireplace and
Yeah.
about 100. So it's a rough estimate of
Okay.
160.
All right.
Okay.
My first question. At Harry and Ron's first trip to Hagrid's, there are 2 items outside the door and 2 items hanging from his ceiling. Name as many of these items as you can. All right, Riley.
I said a pumpkin and an animal skin. I don't really know.
Okay. Abby.
Boots? Boots? That's it, boots.
Okay.
on the outside, I went with a crossbow and a shovel, and on the inside, pots was one of them. But
Okay.
Okay. On the outside, I also thought crossbow and maybe a bucket of leeches or something. I don't know. Hanging on the inside, I believe there's like a dead fowl and possibly a blanket.
All right. We're right around the answers. There was definitely a crossbow,
Check.
and I will give Abby credit for boots because there's a pair of galoshes.
Oh yeah, counts.
And yep. So I'll give you guys credit on half and half on that. And there were hams and pheasants, so a type of fowl.
Dead fowl.
So hams and pheasants hanging from the ceiling.
Excellent. Good question. All right. Here's my next question. How many chocolate frog cards are named during Harry's ride on the Hogwarts Express? All right. Benji, let's start with you.
all right, I went with 7.
Okay. Abby?
I also went with
I
7.
went with 12.
Okay.
I said 6.
Dumbledore is 1. Morgana is 2. Hengist of Woodcraft is 3. Albrecht Grunion is 4. Cersei is 5. Pericles is 6. Merlin is 7. And Cleodonia is 8. There were 8. So, Benji and Abby, I will give you the point since you were closest.
Yeah, if it's the price is right.
And not math class where you have to be exact.
Yeah.
It felt like more. All right. Ready for my second question. During Harry and Hagrid's visit to Diagon Alley, how much does dragon liver cost? Melissa?
7 sickles an ounce.
Okay. Benji?
I went with 6 sickles.
Abby?
I went with 5 sickles.
15 sickles.
The answer is 16 sickles an ounce.
Let's go.
Just under a galleon.
Last question. Name at least 2 of Dumbledore's official titles. All right, let's start with you, Ab, and go around you and then down and then back up.
Oh boy. Okay. He's something of a Wizengot, or I don't know. He's a Merlin first class, a head wigwam wamgat. That's all I got.
Okay? Luke.
He is the Supreme Mugwump. He is the Headmaster of Hogwarts. He is also the Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot.
Okay, you got 3. All right. Riley.
I put Headmaster of Hogwarts. And I put Grand Alchemist, which I thought was what Head Sorcerer was.
Okay.
But Headmaster.
And I had Merlin First Class and Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot.
Okay, so there are 5 titles. Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, 1. Order of Merlin, First Class, 2. Grand Sorcerer, 3. Chief Warlock, 4. And Supreme Mugwump, 5. I think Luke wins with the most.
Yes.
I know I asked for 2.
I'll give him the point.
Yeah, that's fine.
Give him the point.
It's not like he took notes on every chapter.
Right.
Overachiever.
By reading the books more thoroughly? Okay.
Nobody likes to show off, Luke.
Yeah.
All right. Last trivia question for book 1. How many Gryffindor Tower passwords were there in this book? And name them. All right, Abby, you got an answer?
4?
And you don't know what any of them were?
No. I'm gonna hate myself as soon as you say the first one.
All right, Benji?
I'm going with 6, and I'm completely blanking on any of them. Like I said, I can name one from another book, but not
Melissa?
this one.
13. I don't have any idea.
Riley?
3 passwords.
The answer is 2.
Man, Riley's good at guessing without any background knowledge.
Hey, I'm a good test taker.
It's a good thing you're the one in college
And
right
the
now.
2 are Caput Draconis and Pig Snout.
Nope, would not have known those.
Yeah, no.
Those are good.
Alright, who wins trivia? I got 2 points.
I got 2 points.
I wasn't tracking how many I got.
Yeah, that was.
Luke earned a point. Luke, I don't
I
know.
think I got 2 points.
Hey, if you and I were the only ones who tracked them, we win.
I definitely.
What'd you get out? You got 2 too, didn't you? That means our questions are either astronomically
Yeah.
hard or we're all equally, incompetent.
I'm pretty sure we almost all got 2 points.
Well, we also know that we all know the books pretty well, and
Yeah.
so we're trying to.
Trying
I know
to
I
stump.
tried to put
Yeah.
more difficult, more obscure things.
yeah, you got 2 points first time, so.
Not
That's
bad.
a win.
It's a good showing. So the last 2 things that we're going to do is we're going to go through our whole series book ranking so far. So I think by default, most of us are going to rank this 1 out of 1.
Unless it's 0 out of 1, as in, I don't even like it, which is not for true for me.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's 1 out of 1
This is
by
1 out of
default.
1.
I don't know. This took a lot of deliberation. Took me a while to think of, but 1 out of 1 for sure.
Agreed.
Reasonable. Abby? Alright, so we're going to do our final thoughts for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. First time reader, what'd you think?
You know what? I'm really glad that you guys asked me to do this. You know, I love this series. I have watched a lot of the movies, but I believe that there's an importance and a kind of intimacy with the books in every series. And I'm glad that you guys asked me to do this so I could finally push myself to finally take a step and read them. And I loved this book. I really did. I felt like I was a kid again, seeing all this magic happen and being introduced to this world again. I really made an effort to put myself in that spot, and I feel like it paid off for this experience. And I'm only excited to keep reading the rest of the books. So thank you so much for having me do this, and I'm so ready for the next however long it takes to get to finish these.
Yeah. Alright, Abby, final thoughts?
My final thoughts is, still, after reading them countless times, I'm just left with questions. How does one not realize Harry Potter has killed a man? How do random young adults fly in to Hogwarts unannounced? There's no stopping them or protection. So just questions, and that's what I love about this book. Every time I read it, I see something new. I see something different that I didn't notice before, and I hope that's how it is every time I read it. And listening to the podcast, because that's what I do on Sundays, I have just broadened, not like my thought process around it, just that meticulous going through it. It has just opened up so many questions, like how does a man die and I not even give him an ounce of consideration. The podcast has just been wonderful for a reader like me who kind of just reads and then realizes, oh, I might not have realized what I just read.
All right, Benj.
All right, my final thoughts on this book: it puts me to sleep. And when I say that, I mean that in the most loving and caring way possible, because like I said, I listen to these books every single night as I'm laying in bed, getting ready to fall asleep, and they ease me in and bring me back to a happy time of reading these stories and just enjoying, the good just writing and awesome visualizations, mental visualizations that you get from these great stories, and especially this first one, because it does suck you in. If you haven't read the books and you're listening to this podcast, I highly recommend taking my sister's advice, read through chapter 7. If you get through chapter 7, you will not put this book down, and then you will read the rest of the 7 books, and you will be stuck in an endless loop of reading these books over and over and over again, and you will love every second of it. And that's where I stand with this book. It is, even after the final say, it's still in my upper echelon of my favorite books of the series. So I will leave it at that. Luke?
So I feel like I've said this kind of over and over, but I love that the magic is still there every time that I pick the book up and read through it again. And it's so rereadable. And obviously that's what we do. We've reread these books for almost 20 years now. And I mean, I'm like Benji. I audiobook them and I just throw them on all the time. I've probably gone through the entire series well over 100 times just by listening to them, and I haven't gotten tired of it. And even doing this chapter by chapter, yeah, it was a little bit different in some parts, but even the parts where it was tough, it was still. I'd rather be doing that than reading it again than not having these books.
So my thought. I have loved reading since I was a little kid, and I didn't have siblings that liked to read, except for Luke, who I read to when he was a baby because I saw the other siblings not reading, so I'm like, no, this one's going to read. So I was the one who read to Luke at night. And it wasn't until Harry Potter came out, and every person, except for Riley, because, I moved out by the time he was born, so I can't take responsibility for him. But every single one of you started reading. These books are magic, and I don't mean walking to Diagon Alley and seeing the Great Hall for the first time. I mean the magic that I, as a 21-year-old, and my brother, as an 11-year-old, can enjoy the same book, and my father can read it with us too, and my kids now are reading it, and my students are reading it, and I can have that conversation. I can wear my Harry Potter t-shirt to my kids' swim meet, and 7 kids who aren't even on my kids' swim team come up to me to have a big conversation. It's such a universe and such a universal language of people who've spoken it. Now, most families, when they get together, are going to talk about sports or their kids. When I get in a room with my brothers, we talk about Harry Potter. You know how that sounds. So when Luke started saying we really should just record this as a podcast, I really thought oh, how funny. That's really cute. I don't have time for that. But he made it happen. And this has been the best part of my year outside of, being a mom. And I love that stuff. But it has been the thing I look forward to and the thing that lets me escape from my world. So not just do I get to escape into the magical world, I get to escape into doing this podcast and talking about it. So it's just one more extra thing that Harry Potter has brought to my life. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate everyone who has taken this journey with us on the first book of Harry Potter. We will be taking a 2-week break while we work hard to bring you our grand movie extravaganza. And by grand, it's the grand amount of ideas and thoughts we have about the adaptation of the book into a movie. It's great. In the meanwhile, while you're waiting for us, we would welcome your feedback on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at Not Named Podcast. You can email us at thepodcastthatmustnotbenamed@gmail.com, and you can leave us comments at thepodcastthat.com at our website. Please find us and rate us on iTunes, leave a review, and we will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Oh, pipe down. Uh-huh. Yeah, heard enough from you. Wrong.
Are we just adding those randomly through?
Good point, Luke. Totally right. Absolutely agree, Luke. You're a rock star. So happy to be your sister. Man, I got lucky.
We all got lucky on that one.
Yeah, we did. For sure.